The snow fell in thick, silent curtains outside the kitchen window, each flake catching the glow of Christmas lights strung haphazardly across our neighbor's fence. I pressed my swollen fingers against the cold glass, watching my breath fog the surface. Inside, the apartment smelled of pine from the cheap artificial tree David had bought 3 years ago, its plastic branches sagging under the weight of ornaments I'd collected since we were newlyweds. The scent should have been comforting. Instead, it felt suffocating. My back ached with that deep, relentless throb that had become my constant companion these past few weeks. 8 months pregnant, and I could barely remember what it felt like to sleep through the night, to bend over without grunting, to exist without this heavy, precious weight pressing against my ribs. I placed both hands on my belly, feeling the baby shift beneath my touch. A foot, maybe, or an elbow. My daughter. Our daughter. Emma, we need to talk. David's voice cut through the quiet like a blade. I turned from the window, my heart already sinking at his tone. He stood in the doorway of our bedroom, still wearing his work clothes. The navy suit I'd helped him pick out last year. The tie I'd given him for his birthday, but something was wrong. His face was pale, his jaw set in that stubborn way I'd learned to dread. "What's wrong?" I asked. Though part of me didn't want to know, he didn't meet my eyes. Instead, he stared at the floor, at the worn carpet we'd always meant to replace. "I can't do this anymore." The words hung in the air between us, heavy and sharp. I felt my stomach drop, felt the baby kick as if sensing my distress. Can't do what? This, us, the baby. He finally looked up, and I saw something cold in his eyes, something I'd never seen before. "I'm leaving." I laughed. It was a broken, desperate sound. "You're joking. It's Christmas Eve, David. I'm 8 months pregnant with your child." "It's not mine." The world tilted. I gripped the edge of the kitchen counter, my knuckles white. "What?" "Don't lie to me, Emma." His voice rose, sharp and accusing. "I know about him, about what you've been doing." "There is no him." My voice cracked, tears already burning behind my eyes. "David, I don't know what you're talking about. I would never. Melissa told me everything." He cut me off, his face flushing red. "She saw you. At that restaurant downtown, with some man. She said you looked intimate." Melissa. His co-worker. The woman who'd always looked at me with barely concealed contempt at office parties, who touched David's arm too long when she laughed at his jokes. When? When did she supposedly see this? 3 months ago, at Carmichael's. My mind raced. Carmichael's. I'd been there once, 3 months ago, for a job interview. I'd been serving coffee at a diner for 2 years, barely making enough to cover groceries, and a friend had set me up with an interview for a hostess position at the upscale restaurant. The manager had been a middle-aged man named Roberto, who'd spoken kindly to me, who'd offered me water when I'd felt dizzy from standing too long. The interview had lasted 20 minutes. I hadn't gotten the job. "That was a job interview," I said, my voice shaking. Roberto Garcia, the floor manager. "I can show you the emails. I don't want to see your lies." David moved past me, heading toward the bedroom. "I want you out." "Out?" I followed him, my hand protectively cradling my belly. "David, please, just listen to me." He emerged with a duffel bag, the one we'd used for our honeymoon 4 years ago. He started stuffing clothes into it. My clothes, maternity jeans, stretched-out sweaters, the soft cotton nightgowns I wore because nothing else fit anymore. "I've already talked to a lawyer. You'll be hearing from him after the holidays." "You can't do this." Panic clawed at my throat. Where am I supposed to go? It's snowing. It's Christmas Eve. I'm pregnant. You should have thought about that before you cheated on me. He zipped the bag closed with vicious finality and thrust it at me. "Get out, Emma. This is my home, too. My name is on the lease. Your name isn't on anything." His smile was cruel. I made sure of that. "Now get out before I call the police and tell them you're trespassing." I stared at him, at this man I'd loved, this man I'd married in a small ceremony at City Hall because we couldn't afford anything bigger, this man whose child was growing inside me, and I saw a stranger. My hands trembled as I took the bag. You're making a mistake. The only mistake I made was trusting you. The cold hit me like a physical blow the moment I stepped outside. I'd grabbed my winter coat, the only one that still fit over my belly. But it wasn't enough. The wind cut through the fabric, and snow immediately began gathering in my hair, melting against my scalp. I stood on the sidewalk outside our apartment building, watching the Christmas lights blur through my tears, and realized I had nowhere to go. My parents were gone. Mom to cancer 3 years ago. Dad to a heart attack 6 months after. I had no siblings. My friends had drifted away over the years, the way friends do when you're struggling to make ends meet and can't afford to go out, can't afford to keep up. David had been my whole world, David and the baby. I pulled out my phone with shaking fingers, scrolling through my contacts. There had to be someone. Anyone. The screen blurred as tears streamed down my face. I stopped on a name, Jenna Morrison, my old roommate from before I'd married David. We hadn't spoken in over a year, but maybe I typed out a message, my fingers clumsy on the screen. Hey, I know it's been a while and I'm so sorry to ask, but I'm in trouble. David kicked me out and I'm pregnant and I have nowhere to go. Can I please stay with you just for tonight? I'm desperate. I hit send before I could second guess myself, then wrapped my arms around my belly, trying to shield my baby from the cold. The snow was falling harder now, accumulating on the sidewalk in thick drifts. My feet were already numb in my thin boots. The phone buzzed. I looked down, hope flaring in my chest. But it wasn't from Jenna. It was a message from an unknown number. Who is this? My heart sank. Wrong number. In my desperation, I must have mistyped. I started to delete the message, to try again, but another text came through. Are you safe? Something about those 3 words, the directness, the concern from a stranger, broke something inside me. I sank down onto a snow-covered bench, no longer caring about the cold, about the wet seeping through my jeans. My fingers moved across the screen almost of their own accord. No, I'm not safe. I'm 8 months pregnant and my husband just kicked me out on Christmas Eve because he thinks I cheated on him. I didn't. I have nowhere to go. I'm sorry. I meant to text someone else. Please ignore this. I sent it before I could stop myself, then immediately felt foolish. What was I doing, pouring my heart out to a stranger? I started to type an apology, but another message appeared. Where are you? I hesitated. Every self-preservation instinct screamed at me to stop, to not give my location to someone I didn't know. But I was so cold, so tired, so desperate. What did I have to lose? Maple Street, outside the Riverside Apartments, Building 4. Stay there, don't move, I'm sending someone. I stared at the message, my heart pounding. This was insane. I should leave, should find a shelter, should do anything but wait for a stranger. But my body wouldn't cooperate. I was so tired, so cold. The baby kicked again, harder this time, and I whispered into the snowy darkness, "It's okay, sweetheart. We're going to be okay, somehow." 20 minutes passed. I watched the snow accumulate on my coat, felt my teeth begin to chatter. I was just about to give up, to drag myself to my feet and start walking toward the homeless shelter I'd passed a few blocks away, when headlights cut through the darkness. A black SUV pulled up to the curb, its engine purring like a predator. The windows were tinted so dark I couldn't see inside. For a moment I was terrified. What had I done? This could be anyone. This could be... The back door opened, and a man stepped out. He was tall, dressed in an expensive charcoal overcoat that probably cost more than I made in 6 months. Even in the dim light, I could see he was young, maybe early 30s, with dark hair and a face that looked like it had been carved from marble. But it was his eyes that caught me, dark, assessing, missing nothing. They swept over me, my tear-stained face, my swollen belly, my pathetic duffel bag, and something flickered in their depths. Anger, maybe, or something harder to name. He didn't smile. He simply extended a gloved hand. "Come with me." I should have been afraid. Everything about him screamed danger. From the cold authority in his voice to the way the driver, a massive man who looked like he could break me in half, watched from the front seat. But I was beyond fear. I was beyond everything except the bone-deep exhaustion and the desperate need to protect my baby. I took his hand. His grip was firm, steady, and impossibly warm through the leather of his glove. He helped me to my feet with surprising gentleness, as if he understood exactly how much everything hurt, how hard it was to move with this much weight, throwing off my balance. "Watch your head," he murmured, guiding me into the SUV. The interior smelled of leather and something else, something expensive and masculine, like cedar and smoke. The seats were heated. I almost wept at the warmth. He slid in beside me, and the driver pulled away from the curb without a word. I sat there, trembling, watching the Christmas lights of my old neighborhood blur past the window. The man beside me didn't speak. He simply removed his coat and draped it over me, the weight of it immediately cutting the chill. "Thank you," I whispered. He turned to look at me, and for the first time, I saw his face clearly in the passing streetlights. Beautiful, cold, dangerous. "What's your name?" "Emma. Emma Thornton." "Emma." He said it slowly, as if testing how it felt. "I'm going to ask you a question, and I need you to answer honestly. Did your husband hurt you?" I shook my head, fresh tears spilling over. "Not physically. He doesn't believe me. He thinks I cheated. But I didn't. I swear I didn't." Something dark crossed his face. "And the baby? She's his. She's his daughter, and he doesn't even care." My voice broke on the last word. The man was silent for a long moment, his jaw tight. Then he pulled out his phone and typed something quickly. He didn't offer his name. He didn't explain who he was or where we were going. But somehow, sitting in that warm car, wrapped in his coat that smelled like expensive cologne and cold winter air, I felt safer than I had in hours. The baby kicked, and I gasped softly, my hand flying to my belly. He noticed immediately. "Is something wrong?" "No, she's just active." I tried to smile through my tears. "She doesn't like it when I'm upset." He stared at my hand on my belly for a long moment, something unreadable in his dark eyes. Then he reached over and adjusted the coat more securely around my shoulders. "No one will hurt you again, Emma, I promise you that." The certainty in his voice should have sounded ridiculous. He didn't know me. He didn't owe me anything. But something in the way he said it, the absolute unwavering conviction, made me believe him. As the SUV turned onto a tree-lined street where houses gave way to mansions, where Christmas lights became elegant displays of wealth and power, I realized I'd made a choice. I'd gotten into a stranger's car on Christmas Eve, and now I was heading somewhere unknown with a man whose name I didn't even know. I should have been terrified. Instead, for the first time since David had told me to leave, I felt the tight knot of panic in my chest begin to loosen. The stranger beside me made a phone call, his voice low and commanding. "Prepare the East Guest Suite, medical supplies, and get Dr. Chen here within the hour." He ended the call and turned back to me, his dark eyes reflecting the passing lights. "You're safe now." But as the SUV pulled through iron gates that opened before us like a jaw, I wondered what kind of safety I'd just traded my freedom for. The mansion rose before us like something out of a dream, or a nightmare, depending on how you looked at it. 3 stories of pale stone and glass, windows glowing with warm light that spilled onto manicured lawns now blanketed in fresh snow. A fountain stood silent in the circular drive, its water frozen mid-cascade into crystalline sculptures. This wasn't a home. This was a statement of power. The SUV stopped beneath a covered portico, and before I could reach for the door handle, it was opened from the outside. Another man in a dark suit stood there, his face professionally blank as he offered me his hand. I struggled out of the vehicle, my movements awkward and ungainly, acutely aware of how I must look, my hair wet from melted snow, my cheap maternity jeans stained and stretched, my face surely blotchy from crying. The man who'd rescued me emerged from the other side with fluid grace. Up close, under the mansion's exterior lights, I could see more details. His jaw was sharp enough to cut glass, with the shadow of stubble that suggested he'd been working late. His suit was impeccable, tailored to perfection, the kind of clothing that whispered rather than shouted wealth. But it was the way he carried himself that truly caught my attention, the absolute confidence, the way the other men deferred to him with subtle shifts in posture. This way. He placed a hand on the small of my back, guiding me toward the entrance. His touch was light, but somehow commanding, and I found myself moving forward even as my mind screamed that this was all too surreal. The front door opened before we reached it, revealing an older woman with silver hair pulled into an elegant bun. She wore a simple black dress with a string of pearls, and her eyes, kind and sharp simultaneously, swept over me with the practiced assessment of someone used to evaluating situations quickly. "Mrs. Chen," the man said, "this is Emma. She'll be staying in the East Wing." "Of course, Mr. Volkov." The woman's voice was warm despite the formality. She smiled at me, and something in my chest loosened slightly. "Come, dear. Let's get you warm and dry." Volkov, so that was his name. It suited him somehow. Strong, foreign, dangerous. The interior of the mansion was overwhelming. Marble floors gleamed beneath an enormous chandelier that caught the light and scattered it into 1,000 tiny rainbows. A curved staircase swept upward, its banister polished to a mirror shine. Artwork hung on walls painted in muted, expensive colors. Not the prints I was used to, but original paintings that probably cost more than I'd earn in a lifetime. "Mr." Volkov walked ahead of us, his phone to his ear, speaking in rapid Russian. I caught none of it, but the tone was clear. He was giving orders, and they would be followed. Mrs. Chen led me up the staircase, her hand gentle on my elbow, as I navigated each step with increasing difficulty. "How far along are you, dear?" she asked softly. 8 months. Nearly 35 weeks. She made a sympathetic sound, and out in the snow on Christmas Eve. "That husband of yours should be ashamed." I didn't know how to respond to that, so I said nothing. We reached the second floor and turned down a hallway, lined with more artwork and elegant sconces that cast everything in a golden glow. She opened a door at the end of the corridor, and I stepped into a room that took my breath away. It was bigger than the entire apartment I'd shared with David. A 4-poster bed dominated one wall, piled high with pillows and covered in what looked like silk bedding in shades of cream and gold. French doors led to a balcony overlooking snow-covered gardens. A sitting area with a plush sofa and chairs surrounded a fireplace where flames already danced, filling the room with warmth. Another door stood ajar, revealing a bathroom with a clawfoot tub that could probably fit 3 people. "I'll have dinner sent up," Mrs. Chen said, moving to the fireplace to adjust the flames. "When did you last eat?" I tried to remember. "Breakfast?" No. I'd been too nervous about David's mood. "Yesterday, I think." Her lips pressed into a thin line, but she didn't comment. "I'll bring soup and bread, easy on the stomach. And tea? Chamomile, perhaps?" "You don't have to." "Of course I do." She turned to face me, and her expression was firm, but kind. "Mr. Volkov has given orders that you're to be cared for. That means proper food, rest, and medical attention. Dr. Chen, my husband, will be here soon to examine you and make sure the baby is well." The baby. I pressed my hand to my belly, feeling the familiar flutter of movement. My daughter, blissfully unaware of the chaos her mother's life had become. "Thank you," I whispered, my throat tight with emotion. Mrs. Chen crossed to me and gently squeezed my shoulder. "You're safe here, Emma. Whatever brought you to our door tonight, you're safe now. That's what matters." After she left, I stood in the center of the room, still wearing my wet coat, clutching my pathetic duffel bag. This couldn't be real. People like me didn't end up in places like this. I was a waitress who'd barely graduated high school, who'd married too young and dreamed too small. I didn't belong in a room with silk sheets and original artwork. A knock at the door startled me from my thoughts. "Come in," I called, expecting Mrs. Chen with the promised food. Instead, Mr. Volkov entered, carrying a silver tray laden with covered dishes. The sight of him in this domestic role was so incongruous that I almost laughed. Men who wore suits that expensive, who moved with that kind of predatory grace, didn't carry food trays. "Mrs. Chen is preparing a room for Dr. Chen," he said, setting the tray on the small table near the fireplace. "I told her I'd bring this up. He lifted the covers, revealing a bowl of chicken soup that smelled like heaven, fresh bread still steaming, a pot of tea, and a plate of fruit and cheese. My stomach growled audibly, and despite everything, I felt my cheeks heat with embarrassment. "Sit," he commanded, pulling out a chair. "Eat." I wanted to argue, to maintain some shred of dignity, but I was so hungry and so tired that I simply obeyed. The moment the first spoonful of soup touched my tongue, I had to suppress a moan. It was rich and perfectly seasoned, with tender chunks of chicken and vegetables. Real food, made by someone who knew what they were doing. Mr. Volkov didn't sit. Instead, he stood by the fireplace, watching me with those dark, unreadable eyes. It should have made me uncomfortable, being observed while I ate like a starving animal. But somehow his presence was grounding, solid. "Why are you doing this?" I asked between bites, unable to contain the question any longer. "Doing what?" "This. All of this." I gestured around the room. "You don't know me. I could be anyone. I could be lying about everything." He was silent for a long moment, and I watched the firelight play across his features, highlighting the sharp angles of his face. "Are you lying?" "No." The word came out fierce, definitive. "Everything I told you is true. David is my husband. This is his baby. And he threw me out because his coworker convinced him I was unfaithful." His coworker. Something dangerous flickered in Mr. Volkov's eyes. "The one who claimed to see you at Carmichael's." I nodded, tearing off a piece of bread. "Melissa Crawford. She's wanted David since the day she met him. I always knew it, but I trusted him. I laughed bitterly. I thought our marriage meant something. "Tell me about this interview, at Carmichael's." So I did. I told him about the endless months of trying to make ends meet on my waitress salary while David's construction job barely covered rent. About the friend who'd recommended me for the hostess position. About my hope that the better pay would help us prepare for the baby. About Roberto Garcia, who'd been kind and professional, who'd given me water when I'd looked pale and told me gently that they'd gone with someone with more experience. Mr. Volkov listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker with each detail. When I finished, he pulled out his phone and typed something quickly. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Getting proof." He looked up at me, and there was something almost gentle in his gaze. "You said the manager's name was Roberto Garcia." "Yes, but..." "I'll have his statement by morning, along with security footage from the restaurant showing the date and time of your interview. Your husband will receive copies as well." I set down my spoon, staring at him. "You can do that? Just get security footage from a restaurant?" His smile was slight and didn't reach his eyes. "I can do many things, Emma." The way he said my name sent a shiver down my spine that had nothing to do with the cold. There was possession in it, ownership. As if by saving me, he'd somehow claimed me. I should have been frightened. Instead, I felt something warm unfurl in my chest. Something dangerous and confusing. "I don't even know your first name," I said softly. "Alexei." He moved closer, pulling out the chair across from me and finally sitting. "Alexei Volkov." "Russian?" My father was. "I was born here, but I keep certain traditions." The way he said it suggested those traditions went beyond language and family recipes. I sipped the chamomile tea, letting its warmth seep into my bones. "What do you do, Mr. Volkov?" "Alexei," he corrected. "And I handle acquisitions, import and export, various business ventures." It was the vaguest answer possible, and we both knew it, but I was too tired to push, and part of me didn't want to know, not yet. Not when I was sitting in his mansion, eating his food, wearing his coat that still draped over my shoulders. Another knock interrupted us. An older man entered, carrying a medical bag and wearing a kind smile that matched Mrs. Chen's. "I'm Dr. Chen," he said, extending his hand. Alexei called and said we had a patient in need of examination. "I'm not a patient," I protested weakly. "I'm fine. The baby's fine." "Humor me," Dr. Chen said gently. "I promise I'll be quick. Just want to make sure everything is as it should be after your ordeal tonight." Alexei stood. "I'll give you privacy." But as he moved toward the door, I felt a sudden spike of panic. Wait! The word came out sharper than I intended. He turned, raising an eyebrow. Could you stay? Please? I didn't understand why I wanted him there. This man I'd known for less than 2 hours. This stranger who'd plucked me from the snow like a bedraggled kitten. But the thought of being alone with only the doctor made my chest tight with anxiety. Alexei was solid, present, safe. Something flickered across his face. Surprise, perhaps, or satisfaction. He nodded once and moved to stand by the fireplace, far enough to give me privacy, but close enough that I could see him. Dr. Chen was professional and efficient. He took my blood pressure, listened to my heart and lungs, and then asked me to lie on the bed so he could check the baby. His hands were gentle as he palpated my belly, measuring and assessing. The Doppler came out, and suddenly the room filled with the rapid whoosh, whoosh, whoosh of my daughter's heartbeat. I couldn't help it. I started crying again. That sound, so strong and steady and alive. My baby, my little girl, safe despite everything. Heartbeat is excellent, Dr. Chen said, smiling. Strong and regular. You're measuring right on track for 35 weeks. Have you been having contractions? Just Braxton Hicks. Nothing regular. Any bleeding? Fluid leakage? No. He helped me sit up, his expression satisfied. You and baby are doing well, all things considered. But I want you on bed rest for the next few days. No stress, plenty of fluids, good nutrition. I'll come back tomorrow to check on you both. Bed rest? I looked around the luxurious room. I can't just stay here. You can and you will, Alexei interrupted, his tone brooking no argument. You have nowhere else to go, and you're not in any condition to be looking for alternatives. Dr. Chen packed his equipment, then placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. Listen to him, my dear. You've been through a trauma tonight. Your body needs rest to protect that baby. A few days here won't hurt. After he left, I sat on the edge of the bed, overwhelmed by everything. The silence stretched between us, broken only by the crackling of the fire. Alexei remained by the fireplace, his dark eyes never leaving my face. I should let you rest, he finally said, but he didn't move toward the door. Alexei, my voice came out small. Why did you really help me? You could have just sent someone to take me to a hotel or a shelter. Why bring me here? He crossed the room with slow, deliberate steps, stopping just close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. Up close, I could see flecks of gold in the dark brown, could smell that cedar and smoke scent that seemed to cling to him. He reached out, and I held my breath as his fingers gently brushed a strand of damp hair from my face. Because, he said softly, his accent thickening slightly with emotion, no one should be alone on Christmas Eve. Especially not someone carrying a child. His hand moved to hover over my belly, not quite touching. And because when I got your message, something in your words. He paused, seeming to search for the right explanation. I know what it's like to be discarded by those who should protect you. The vulnerability in that admission shocked me. This man, who commanded rooms with his presence, who had people jumping to fulfill his orders, had been hurt, abandoned. Thank you, I whispered. For everything. His hand finally settled on my belly, large and warm and impossibly gentle. The baby kicked, and his eyes widened slightly. For just a moment, the dangerous mask slipped, and I saw something raw and wondering in his expression. Then it was gone, and he stepped back, professional distance reasserting itself. Sleep, Emma. Tomorrow we'll deal with your husband and get you the proof you need. He was at the door when I called out one more time. Alexei? That number I texted. Whose was it? He turned, and his smile was sharp enough to cut. Mine, and it's not one I give out lightly. He paused, his eyes holding mine. You were meant to find me tonight, Emma. I don't believe in accidents. Then he was gone, the door closing softly behind him, leaving me alone in a room that belonged in a fairy tale with questions I wasn't sure I wanted answered. I changed into one of the nightgowns Mrs. Chen had left folded on the bed, soft cotton that actually fit my swollen body. and slipped between sheets that felt like clouds. Outside, snow continued to fall, blanketing the world in white silence. I placed my hands on my belly, feeling my daughter move beneath my palms. "What have we gotten ourselves into, little one?" I whispered into the darkness, but exhaustion was pulling me under, and for the first time in months, I felt warm, safe, protected. I didn't know that in helping me, Alexei Volkov had just made me the most dangerous woman in the city. I didn't know that my husband's betrayal was about to unleash a chain of events that would change everything. All I knew was that when I closed my eyes, I saw dark eyes filled with an intensity that both terrified and thrilled me, and that maybe, just maybe, being found by a stranger on Christmas Eve was the best thing that had ever happened to me. I woke to sunlight streaming through gauzy curtains and the soft clink of china. For a disoriented moment, I thought I was back in the apartment with David. That everything had been a nightmare. Then I felt the silk sheets beneath my fingers, saw the elegant room bathed in morning light, and remembered. Mrs. Chen stood by the small table near the window, arranging breakfast on a tray. She looked up when I stirred, her smile warm. "Good morning, dear. How did you sleep?" "Better than I have in months," I admitted, struggling to sit up. My back protested, but less than usual. The mattress had been perfectly supportive, cradling my pregnant body in a way my old lumpy bed never had. "Excellent. Dr. Chen will be pleased." She helped me arrange pillows behind my back, then set the tray across my lap. Fresh fruit, yogurt with honey, buttered toast, and what looked like a vegetable omelet. "Eat slowly. Your stomach needs to adjust after yesterday." I picked up the fork, suddenly shy. Is Alexei awake?" Something flickered in her eyes, amusement, perhaps, or understanding. "He's been awake since 5. He's in his office handling business." She poured tea from a delicate pot. "He asked me to tell you that the information you needed arrived an hour ago." My heart leaped. "Information?" "From the restaurant, Carmichael's." She handed me an envelope that had been tucked beside the tray. "Everything you need to prove your innocence." My hands shook as I opened it. Inside were printed emails, time-stamped security camera stills, and a notarized statement from Roberto Garcia confirming my interview date, time, and duration. The photographs showed me clearly, sitting across from Roberto at a corner table, looking nervous and hopeful, my hands folded over my barely visible pregnancy bump. The timestamp read 3 months ago, exactly when Melissa claimed to have seen me being intimate with another man. There was nothing intimate about it, just a pregnant woman desperately trying to get a better job. "How did he get all this so fast?" I whispered. Mrs. Chen's smile was enigmatic. "Mr. Volkov is very good at getting what he wants, and what he wanted was to help you." I ate slowly, mechanically, my mind spinning. With this evidence, I could prove to David that Melissa had lied. I could make him see the truth. Maybe he'd realize his mistake, apologize, take me back. But even as I thought it, something cold settled in my stomach. Did I want him to take me back? The man who'd thrown his 8 months pregnant wife out into the snow on Christmas Eve without even listening to her side? The man who'd trusted a coworker over his own wife? A knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. Mrs. Chen opened it, and my breath caught. Alexei stood in the doorway, dressed in another immaculate suit. This one charcoal gray with a dark blue tie. His hair was slightly damp, as if he'd recently showered, and he smelled of expensive cologne and something uniquely him. His eyes found mine immediately, scanning my face as if checking for signs of distress. "You slept well." His voice was lower than I remembered, rougher, as if he hadn't used it much this morning. "Yes, thank you, for everything." I held up the envelope. "Mrs. Chen said you got this for me." He moved into the room with that predatory grace, dismissing Mrs. Chen with a subtle nod. She left, closing the door behind her. Suddenly, the large room felt smaller, more intimate. Alexei pulled a chair close to the bed, sitting so that we were nearly at eye level. "Your husband received copies an hour ago," he said, along with a message suggesting he verify the information before making further accusations. He probably won't even look at it. When David makes up his mind about something, he'll look. The certainty in Alexei's voice was absolute. I made sure of it. I didn't ask how. I was learning that Alexei operated in ways I couldn't begin to understand. What do I do now? That depends. What do you want to do? I set down my fork, my appetite suddenly gone. I want my husband to know the truth. I want him to apologize. My voice broke. I want my life back. Alexei was quiet for a long moment, his dark eyes studying me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. And if he doesn't apologize? If he refuses to believe the evidence? The question hung in the air between us, heavy with implications I wasn't ready to examine. I don't know, I whispered. He reached out and gently took my hand. His palm was warm, slightly calloused, and the touch sent electricity racing up my arm. You have options, Emma. You don't have to go back to a man who doesn't deserve you. I'm pregnant with his child. I have no money, no job, no family. What options do I have? You have me. The words were simple, but the weight behind them was enormous. I looked up at him, searching his face for meaning. I don't understand. Stay here. Let me take care of you and the baby. You need rest, proper nutrition, medical care. I can provide all of that. His thumb stroked across my knuckles, the gesture almost absent-minded. After the baby comes, we'll figure out the rest. You're offering to let a stranger live in your house and have a baby here? I couldn't keep the disbelief from my voice. Why would you do that? His jaw tightened. I have my reasons. That's not an answer. It's the only one I can give you right now. He stood abruptly, releasing my hand, and I felt the loss of his touch like a physical thing. Think about it. In the meantime, you should rest. Dr. Chen will be here this afternoon. He was at the door when my phone buzzed on the nightstand. I picked it up, my heart sinking when I saw David's name on the screen. Alexei paused, watching me. It's him, I said quietly. Do you want to answer it? I stared at the phone, watching it buzz again and again. Finally, I swiped to answer and put it on speaker, not trusting my voice to remain steady. Emma. David's voice was tight, angry. Where the hell are you? Somewhere safe, away from you. Don't be dramatic. Look, I got some information this morning about that interview you claim to have. Claimed? The word came out sharp. I didn't claim anything, David. I told you the truth. Fine, whatever. The point is, maybe I was hasty. Hasty? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You threw me out in the snow on Christmas Eve. You called me a liar and a cheat, and now you're saying you were hasty? Alexei's expression had gone dangerously cold, but he remained silent, watching. Emma, come home. We'll talk about this like adults. David's voice took on a wheedling tone I'd heard before, the one he used when he wanted something. I'm willing to forgive you for... Forgive me? I was shaking now, fury overriding fear. I didn't do anything wrong. You're the one who needs to be asking for forgiveness. Look, I said I'm sorry, okay? What more do you want? I made a mistake. Melissa was wrong. Come home and we'll put this behind us. I looked at Alexei, who was watching me with those dark, knowing eyes. Something in his expression gave me courage. No. Silence on the other end. Then, what do you mean, no? I mean no, David. I'm not coming home. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Where are you going to go? Ridiculous. Who's going to take care of you? You need me, Emma. No, I said softly. I really don't. Not anymore. I hung up before he could respond, my hands trembling. The phone immediately started ringing again. I silenced it and set it face down on the nightstand. Good, Alexei said, his voice carrying a note of approval that warmed me more than it should have. He doesn't deserve you. I don't know what I'm going to do. I pressed my hands to my face, feeling tears threaten again. I can't go back to him, but I can't stay here forever either. This isn't my life. This isn't my world. Alexei crossed back to the bed and crouched down so we were eye level. He gently pulled my hands from my face, holding them between his own. Listen to me, Emma. You are stronger than you think. You survived being thrown out in the cold. You protected your daughter, and you just stood up to a man who tried to break you. That takes courage. I don't feel courageous. I feel terrified. Good. Fear means you're still fighting. He squeezed my hands gently. Stay here until the baby comes. That gives you 5 weeks to heal, to rest, to plan. After she's born, we'll figure out next steps. Legal separation, divorce, custody arrangements, whatever you need. Why are you being so kind to me? I searched his face, looking for ulterior motives, for the catch that must be hiding somewhere. You don't even know me. Something flickered in his eyes. Pain, maybe, or memory. My mother was pregnant when my father threw her out. I was 5 years old. We had nowhere to go, no one to help us. She gave birth in a clinic that barely had running water. His voice was soft, but edged with old anger. I swore then that if I ever had the power to help someone in her position, I would. So yes, Emma, I do know you. Better than you think. The revelation stole my breath. I saw him differently now. Not just the powerful, dangerous man in the expensive suit, but a little boy who'd watched his mother suffer, who'd grown up determined to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. I'm sorry, I whispered. That must have been terrible. It made me who I am. He stood, his mask of control sliding back into place. Rest now. Mrs. Chen will bring lunch later. And Emma? He paused at the door. Your husband will call again, probably many times. You don't have to answer. But if you choose to, remember, you hold all the power now, not him. After he left, I lay back against the pillows, my mind whirling. Through the window, I could see the snow-covered grounds stretching toward a line of trees in the distance. Somewhere beyond those trees was my old life. The cramped apartment, the struggling marriage, the constant worry about money. Here, in this room with its silk sheets and fireplace and endless comfort, I could almost forget that life existed. Almost. The day passed in a strange, dreamlike haze. Dr. Chen came and pronounced both me and the baby healthy. Mrs. Chen brought meals that were better than anything I'd eaten in years. I showered in the enormous bathroom, using soaps that smelled of lavender and vanilla, letting hot water soothe muscles I hadn't realized were so tight. But always, in the back of my mind, I was aware of Alexei somewhere in the house. I heard his voice occasionally, speaking Russian on the phone, giving orders to staff, conducting the mysterious business that required him to be awake at 5 a.m. And each time I heard him, something in my chest tightened with a feeling I didn't want to name. Evening came, bringing with it a soft knock on my door. I expected Mrs. Chen with dinner, but instead, Alexei entered carrying a large box wrapped in silver paper. What's this? I asked, eyeing the package suspiciously. It's Christmas. He set the box on the bed. You should have a gift. Alexei, you've already given me so much. Open it. I pulled off the paper carefully, revealing a white box with a prestigious department store logo. Inside, nestled in tissue paper, was the most beautiful maternity dress I'd ever seen. Deep emerald green velvet with long sleeves and a flowing skirt that would accommodate my belly. It was elegant and expensive and completely impractical for someone like me. It's too much, I protested, even as my fingers stroked the soft fabric. There's a dinner tonight. Family tradition. I'd like you to join us. His expression was carefully neutral, but I caught something underneath. Uncertainty, maybe, as if my answer mattered. I couldn't. I'm not family. I'd be intruding. You'd be my guest. Please, Emma. The house feels less empty with you in it. The admission, small as it was, felt enormous. This powerful man who commanded respect and fear was lonely. And somehow, my presence made that loneliness less. Okay, I heard myself say. I'll come. His smile was slight but genuine, transforming his face from dangerous to devastating. Dinner is at 7. Mrs. Chen will help you get ready. After he left, I held the dress up to myself, catching my reflection in the mirror. The woman looking back at me was a stranger. Cheeks flushed, eyes bright, pregnant belly prominent beneath borrowed nightclothes. 24 hours ago, I'd been sobbing on a snowy bench, broken and desperate. Now I was standing in a mansion, holding a designer dress, preparing to have Christmas dinner with a man who looked at me like I was something precious. My phone buzzed again. David. I ignored it. Mrs. Chen arrived at 6:30 to help me dress. She styled my hair into soft waves, applied subtle makeup that made me look alive instead of exhausted, and helped me into the velvet dress. It fit perfectly, skimming over my curves and making me feel, for the first time in months, beautiful. "You look lovely, dear," Mrs. Chen said, adjusting a final curl. "Mr. Volkov will be pleased." "This is just dinner," I protested weakly. "Nothing more." Her smile was knowing. "Of course, dear. Just dinner." At 7 o'clock precisely, there was a knock on my door. I opened it to find Alexei standing there in a different suit, this one black with a crisp white shirt open at the collar. His eyes swept over me, and something heated flickered in their depths. "Beautiful," he murmured, offering his arm. "Shall we?" I took his arm, feeling the solid muscle beneath the expensive fabric, and let him lead me down the hallway. My heart pounded with nervousness and something else. Anticipation, maybe, or the thrill of stepping into a world I didn't belong to. We descended the grand staircase, and I could hear voices from below. Russian mixed with English, laughter and conversation. At the bottom, Alexei paused. Most of these people work for me in various capacities. They're loyal, trustworthy, and they know better than to ask questions. His hand covered mine where it rested on his arm. "You're safe here, Emma. I promise." Then we turned the corner into a formal dining room, and I stepped into Alexei Volkov's world completely. The dining room was magnificent, a long table set with crystal and china that caught the light from an enormous chandelier overhead. Perhaps 20 people were gathered, some seated, others standing near a bar where a server poured drinks. Conversation stopped mid-sentence as we entered, all eyes turning toward us. I felt exposed, vulnerable, acutely aware of my swollen belly and second-hand shoes beneath the beautiful dress. These people belonged here, in this world of wealth and power. I was an intruder, a charity case Alexei had picked up off the street. But then Alexei's hand settled on the small of my back, warm and possessive, and he addressed the room with casual authority. "Everyone, this is Emma. She'll be staying with us for a while. I expect you to treat her with the same respect you show me." The message was clear. She's under my protection. Touch her, and answer to me. A woman in her 60s approached first, elegant in a navy dress with her gray hair swept up. Her eyes were sharp, but not unkind as they assessed me. "I'm Katerina Volkova, Alexei's aunt. Welcome, dear." She took my hand in both of hers, her grip firm. "Any friend of my nephew's is family here." Others followed. Victor, head of security, a bear of a man with kind eyes, Dmitri, Alexei's second-in-command, younger and sharper, who watched me with undisguised curiosity, Elena, who managed the household staff, and more whose names blurred together in my nervousness. Alexei guided me to a seat beside his at the head of the table. As everyone settled into their places, servers appeared with the first course, a delicate soup that smelled of mushrooms and cream. The conversation resumed in a mixture of English and Russian, punctuated by laughter and the clink of silverware. I tried to eat, hyper-aware of Alexei beside me. He engaged in conversation with his guests, but I noticed his attention kept drifting back to me, making sure my water glass was full, that I had everything I needed, that no one made me uncomfortable. "So, Emma," Katerina said from across the table, her accent thick but her English perfect. "How did you meet my nephew?" The room quieted slightly, everyone suddenly interested in my answer. I felt my cheeks heat. "I texted him by accident, on Christmas Eve." Katerina's eyebrows rose. "By accident?" "I was trying to reach a friend. I had the wrong number." I glanced at Alexei, who was watching me with those dark eyes. I was in trouble, and he helped me. "What kind of trouble?" Dmitri asked, his tone casual but his eyes sharp. "Dmitri." Alexei's voice was soft but carried a warning. "Emma's past is her own business." But I found myself answering anyway, maybe because of the wine I'd refused, but everyone else was drinking, loosening their tongues and creating a warm, convivial atmosphere. Or maybe because these people, despite their obvious danger, felt more like family than my own husband had in months. "My husband threw me out," I said quietly. "He thought I'd been unfaithful. I hadn't. But he wouldn't listen. So I ended up on a bench in the snow, And I texted what I thought was my friend's number. I looked at Alexei. It was his instead. Silence fell over the table. Then Katerina spoke, her voice hard as stone. He threw out his pregnant wife? On Christmas Eve? He believed a lie someone told him. I explained, though I didn't know why I was defending David. He has proof now that I was telling the truth, but you're not going back, Alexei finished, his tone making it clear this wasn't a question. I don't know what I'm doing, I admitted. Everything happened so fast. Victor, the security chief, raised his glass. To new beginnings, then, and to Alexei, for remembering that power means nothing if we don't use it to protect those who need protecting. Others raised their glasses, toasting me, welcoming me. I felt tears prick my eyes and blinked them back furiously. These strangers were showing me more kindness than my own husband had in months. The meal continued, course after course of incredible food. Roasted duck with cherry sauce, potatoes that melted on the tongue, vegetables I couldn't name but that tasted like heaven. Dessert was a traditional Russian cake layered with cream and berries. And despite my full stomach, I managed a few bites. Throughout it all, I was aware of Alexei, the way he commanded the room without raising his voice, the way people deferred to him with a respect born of something deeper than fear, and the way he kept glancing at me, as if making sure I was real, that I hadn't disappeared. After dinner, people began to drift toward the drawing room where someone had started playing piano. Alexei offered me his hand. Walk with me? I took it, letting him guide me away from the crowd and through French doors that opened onto a covered terrace. The snow had stopped, and the night was crystalline and cold, the stars sharp overhead. Heaters glowed along the terrace, keeping the worst of the chill at bay. This is beautiful, I breathed, looking out over the snow-covered gardens. It's lonely, Alexei said quietly. He stood beside me at the railing, close enough that I could feel his warmth. This house, this life. I built it all to prove I was nothing like my father, that I'd risen above my beginnings. But sometimes I think I've just built a very expensive cage. I turned to look at him, surprised by the admission. You could leave, go anywhere. Could I? His smile was bitter. When you're responsible for this many people, this many lives, you stop belonging to yourself. Every decision I make affects hundreds of others. I can't just walk away. Is that why you help me? Because you can't walk away from your own life, so you save others instead? He turned to face me fully, and the intensity in his eyes made my breath catch. I helped you because when I read your message, something in it called to me. A woman alone, pregnant, abandoned by the person who should protect her. His hand came up to cup my face, his thumb stroking my cheek. I saw my mother in you. But when I saw you, Emma, sitting on that bench, looking so small and scared and brave, I didn't see my mother anymore. I saw you. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure he could hear it. Alexei, you should know something about me, he continued, his voice low and rough. I'm not a good man. The things I do, the business I run, it's not legal, not moral. I've hurt people. I've done things that would make you run from this house and never look back. Are you trying to scare me? I'm trying to be honest with you, because in a few weeks, you'll have a baby, and you'll need to make decisions about your future. And if you choose to stay here to let me help you, you need to know what that means. What does it mean? I whispered. His other hand came up, framing my face between his palms. It means you'll be under my protection. It means anyone who tries to hurt you will answer to me. It means... He stopped, seeming to struggle with the words. It means I won't be able to let you go easily. The admission hung between us, heavy with implication. He was warning me, giving me a chance to run while I still could. But standing there in the cold night air, his hands warm on my face, his dark eyes boring into mine, I didn't want to run. I'm not afraid of you, I said, and was surprised to realize it was true. You should be. But his thumbs stroked my cheeks tenderly, contradicting his words. I'm already too invested in you, Emma. In you and your daughter. And when I'm invested in something, I don't let go. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed in the small purse Mrs. Chen had provided. I pulled it out. my stomach sinking when I saw David's name. Not a call this time, but a text. We need to talk, face to face, tomorrow. There are things you don't understand. Alexei read it over my shoulder, and I felt him tense. What things could you possibly not understand? He accused you falsely, threw you out, and now he wants to manipulate you into coming back. Maybe he's right. Maybe there are things I don't know. No. Alexei's voice was hard. You don't owe him anything, Emma. Not your time, not your explanations, not your presence. He's still my husband, and he's the father of my baby. Biologically, yes, but being a father is more than genetics. It's showing up, protecting, providing. Has he done any of that? I couldn't answer, because we both knew he hadn't. Alexei took the phone from my hands and typed a response before I could stop him. Emma will meet you tomorrow at 2 p.m. at Carmichael's restaurant. She won't be alone. If you have something to say it then. Alexei, you can't just... I can. And I did. He handed the phone back. You need closure, I understand that. But you're not meeting him alone, and you're not meeting him somewhere private where he can pressure you. Public place. My people nearby. Clear boundaries. Your people? Victor will drive you. Dmitri will be at a nearby table. You'll be safe. I don't need bodyguards to meet my husband. Yes, he said firmly. You do. Because I don't trust him not to hurt you again. Maybe not physically, but emotionally? Absolutely. His hand slid down to my shoulders. Let me protect you, Emma. It's what I'm good at. I wanted to argue, to insist I could handle this myself, but the truth was, I was terrified of seeing David again, of his ability to make me doubt myself, to twist words until I didn't know what was true anymore. Okay, I whispered. But I want you there too. Something fierce flashed in Alexei's eyes. I wouldn't be anywhere else. Inside, the piano music had shifted to something slower, more melancholy. Through the glass doors, I could see Katerina dancing with Victor, their movements practiced and comfortable. It looked warm in there, safe, like a world I desperately wanted to be part of. Come, Alexei said, offering his hand. Dance with me. I can barely walk without waddling. I definitely can't dance. Then we'll sway. His smile was slight but genuine. And you'll let me pretend for a few minutes that you belong here. I don't belong anywhere right now, I admitted. Then belong here, with me. Even if just for tonight. He led me inside, and despite my protests, he pulled me gently into his arms. One hand settled on my lower back, the other clasped mine, and we moved in small circles to the piano's melody. My belly pressed against him, the baby moving between us, and I saw something soften in his expression. She's active tonight, I murmured. She knows she's safe. His voice was rough with emotion. You both are. We swayed together, and I let myself relax into his embrace. He smelled like expensive cologne and winter air, and something uniquely him. His hand was warm and solid on my back, his touch gentle despite the power I knew lived in those fingers. Around us, others danced and talked and laughed, but I was aware only of him. Emma, he said quietly, after tomorrow, after you've spoken to your husband, I want you to think carefully about what you want. Not what you think you should want, not what's expected, but what will make you happy, because whatever you decide, I'll support it, even if it means letting you go. I pulled back to look at him, searching his face. And if I decide to stay? His eyes darkened with something that made my pulse race. Then I'll spend every day making sure you never regret it. The song ended, and the spell broke. People began gathering coats, saying their goodbyes. I watched Alexei transform back into the man in charge, shaking hands, giving orders, his mask of control firmly in place. But when he looked at me, I saw beneath it to the man who'd admitted his loneliness, who'd danced with a pregnant stranger, who'd promised to protect me from everything, including my own doubts. Mrs. Chen appeared to escort me back to my room. I was exhausted, my feet aching and my back protesting. But as I climbed the stairs, I looked back to see Alexei watching me, his expression unreadable but intense. That night, I lay in bed unable to sleep despite my exhaustion. Tomorrow I would face David, would hear whatever excuses or explanations he had to offer. And then I would have to make a choice, go back to my old life, to a man who'd proven he didn't trust me, to an apartment that had never felt like home, to struggling to make ends meet while raising a baby alone, or stay here, in this mansion with its silk sheets and endless comfort, under the protection of a man who'd saved me for reasons I still didn't fully understand, a man who was dangerous and powerful, and who looked at me like I was something precious. The baby kicked, hard enough to make me gasp. I placed my hand on my belly, feeling her shift and stretch. "What should we do, little one?" I whispered into the darkness. "What's the right choice?" But she had no answers, and neither did I. All I knew was that tomorrow everything would change again, and this time, I would have to decide my own fate. The morning came too quickly. I woke to gray light filtering through the curtains and the sound of rain pattering against the windows. The snow was melting, turning the pristine white landscape into something muddier, more real. Appropriate, I thought, for what lay ahead. Mrs. Chen brought breakfast, but I could barely eat. My stomach was twisted in knots, and the baby seemed to sense my anxiety, moving restlessly beneath my ribs. At 1 o'clock, she helped me dress in clothes that had appeared in the closet overnight. Maternity jeans that actually fit, a soft sweater in deep blue, a coat that was warm without being bulky. Everything perfectly my size, perfectly chosen. Alexei's doing, of course. At 1:30, Victor appeared at my door. He was as large as I remembered, but his smile was kind as he offered his arm. "Ready, Miss Emma?" "No," I admitted, "but let's go anyway." The SUV was warm and comfortable, the leather seats heated against the cold. Victor drove in silence, giving me space with my thoughts. Dmitri sat in the front passenger seat, his sharp eyes scanning everything we passed. I felt simultaneously protected and trapped. Carmichael's restaurant looked different in daylight, less intimidating than I remembered from my interview 3 months ago. It was elegant but not ostentatious, with large windows looking out onto a street lined with boutiques and cafes. Victor pulled up to the front entrance, and suddenly Alexei was there, opening my door before I could reach for the handle. He'd changed since this morning, now wearing dark jeans and a black sweater under his coat, more casual than I'd seen him, but no less commanding. His eyes searched my face. "You don't have to do this." "Yes, I do." I took his offered hand and let him help me out. "I need to hear what he has to say. I need closure, I think." He nodded but didn't release my hand. "Victor will be at the bar, Dmitri at a table near the back. I'll be right beside you. If at any point you want to leave, just say the word. Alexei, you don't need to sit with me. David will. I don't care what David thinks." His voice was hard. "You're under my protection. That means I stay close." Inside, the restaurant was quiet. Too early for the dinner rush, but past the lunch crowd. A hostess led us to a corner booth where we could see the entire room. Alexei slid in beside me, close enough that his thigh pressed against mine, his arm draped casually across the back of the booth behind my shoulders. To anyone watching, we looked like a couple. The thought sent a confusing flutter through my chest. At precisely 2 o'clock, David walked in. I barely recognized him. He looked haggard, his face unshaven, his clothes rumpled as if he'd slept in them. His eyes found me immediately, then moved to Alexei, and I saw his expression harden. He approached our table slowly, his hands shoved in his pockets. "Emma." His voice was tight. "Who's this?" "A friend," I said, proud that my voice didn't shake. "You said you wanted to talk, so talk." David's eyes never left Alexei, who stared back with the kind of cold, predatory focus that made me understand why people feared him. Finally, David slid into the booth across from us, his jaw clenched. "I didn't expect you to bring company. I didn't expect to be thrown out in the snow," I countered. "Yet, here we are." He flinched. "Emma, look, I know I messed up. I got that evidence you sent, and I believe you now. About the interview. About Melissa lying. How generous of you." "Don't be like that. I'm trying to apologize." He ran a hand through his hair, making it stand up in greasy spikes. Melissa admitted she lied. She said she was jealous, that she wanted to break us up so she could… Well, it doesn't matter now. Point is, I know the truth. And it only took you kicking out your pregnant wife to figure it out. Beside me, I felt Alexei tense, his fingers tightening slightly on my shoulder. I panicked, okay? I thought you'd cheated and I just reacted. David's eyes finally met mine, and I saw something desperate in them. But I'm asking you to come home now. We can fix this. We can be a family. Can we? I asked softly. Because I'm not sure we ever were, David. Not really. What's that supposed to mean? It means I've been thinking, a lot, about our marriage, about how we got here. I took a breath, feeling Alexei's solid presence beside me like an anchor. When was the last time you asked how I was feeling? About the pregnancy? About anything? David's face flushed. I work long hours to provide for us. You work long hours to avoid coming home. And when you are home, you're on your phone or watching TV or complaining about how tired you are. I've been growing our daughter alone, David. You haven't been to a single doctor's appointment. You don't know what position she's in, or that she kicks hardest when I eat chocolate, or that I've been having back pain so bad I can barely sleep. You never told me. I tried, but you never listened. You never saw me. My voice broke, but I pushed on. And the first time something went wrong, the first time you had a chance to prove you trusted me, you chose to believe a woman you barely know over your own wife. Silence fell over the table. David stared at me, his face pale. I said, I'm sorry. What more do you want? I want to know why I should come back. Give me one good reason why I should believe things will be different. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Because I'm your husband. Because that's my baby you're carrying. Because we made vows. Vows you broke the moment you threw me out. I felt tears burn behind my eyes, but refused to let them fall. Not here. Not for him. I've been staying somewhere safe. Somewhere I'm cared for and protected. For the first time in months, I'm not worried about money or food or whether I matter to anyone. And you want me to give that up to come back to an apartment where I was invisible? Wait. David's eyes narrowed, flicking between me and Alexei. Where exactly have you been staying? That's none of your business. The hell it isn't. You're my wife, Emma. I have a right to know where you've been sleeping, who you've been with. His gaze landed on Alexei with sudden understanding. Oh my God. You've been with him, haven't you? This guy? What is this? Some kind of revenge? Alexei spoke for the first time, his voice quiet and deadly. Watch your tone when you speak to her. Who the hell are you? David demanded. Some rich guy she found to take care of her? Is this what you do, Emma? Jump from one man to another? That's enough. I cut him off, my voice sharp as a blade. You don't get to do this. You don't get to accuse me of anything not after what you did. Then tell me the truth. Are you sleeping with him? I felt Alexei tense beside me. Felt the danger radiating off him like heat, but I placed my hand on his thigh, a silent plea for patience, and answered David myself. No. Not that it's any of your business, but Alexei has been nothing but respectful and kind. He gave me a place to stay when I had nowhere to go. He made sure I was warm and fed and safe. He got me medical care and proof of my innocence, and never once asked for anything in return. I leaned forward, holding David's gaze. He's been more of a partner to me in 3 days than you've been in 3 years. David's face went from red to white. You can't be serious. You're going to leave me for some stranger? I'm not leaving you for anyone. I'm leaving you because of you, because you proved that when things get hard you won't stand by me, because you value your pride and ego more than you value your family. I took a shuddering breath. I deserve better than that. Our daughter deserves better than that. Emma, please. His voice cracked, and I saw tears in his eyes. I love you. I know I screwed up, but I love you. Don't throw away our marriage over one mistake. For a moment, just a moment, I wavered. This was the man I'd married, the man I'd promised to love for better or worse. Maybe I was giving up too easily. Maybe I should try harder. Then I felt the baby kick, hard and insistent, and I remembered. Remembered sitting alone in doctors' offices. Remembered crying myself to sleep while David snored beside me, oblivious. Remembered the cold look in his eyes when he'd told me to leave. "I'm not throwing away our marriage," I said quietly. "You already did that. I'm just accepting it. So that's it? You're choosing him over me? I'm choosing me. For once, I'm choosing myself and my daughter." I slid out of the booth, Alexei rising smoothly beside me. "You'll hear from a lawyer about custody arrangements. We can be civil about this, or we can make it ugly. Your choice." "You're making a huge mistake," David said, his voice bitter. "You think this guy actually cares about you? Men like him don't date women like you. You're just a charity case to him, something to make him feel good about himself. Once the novelty wears off, he'll kick you out just like I did." I felt Alexei move, felt the violence coiled in him ready to spring, but I tightened my grip on his arm and faced David one last time. "Maybe you're right. Maybe this won't last, but at least I'll know I tried for something better, instead of settling for someone who made me feel worthless." I turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and David, when the baby comes, I'll let you know. You can decide then if you want to be her father, or just the man who donated DNA. Either way, we'll be fine without you." I walked out of the restaurant with my head high, Alexei's hand firm on my back, Victor and Dmitri falling into step around us like a protective wall. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. In the SUV, the tears finally came. Great, heaving sobs that shook my whole body. Alexei pulled me against his chest, his arms wrapping around me as carefully as if I were made of glass. He didn't tell me to stop crying, didn't offer empty platitudes. He just held me, one hand stroking my hair, while I mourned the death of my marriage and the life I'd thought I'd have. "I'm proud of you," he murmured into my hair. That took courage. "I feel like I'm falling apart." "You're not falling apart. You're breaking free." He pulled back enough to look at me, his thumbs wiping away my tears. "And I meant what I said last night, Emma. Whatever you decide, wherever you want to go from here, I'll support it. If you want to stay at the house until the baby comes, you can. If you want me to help you find your own place, I will. If you want, I want to stay." The words came out before I could second-guess them. "With you. If that's still okay." Something blazed in his dark eyes. Triumph, possession, relief, all mixed together. "More than okay. I don't know what this is between us," I admitted. "I don't know if it's just gratitude or proximity or something more. But I know I feel safer with you than I ever did with David. I know my daughter moves differently when you're near, like she knows you're someone who'll protect her. And I know that even though I should be terrified of you, of this world you live in, I'm not. You should be terrified," he said, echoing his words from the night before. "I told you, I'm not a good man. Maybe not. But you're good to me. That's what matters." He studied my face for a long moment, then leaned forward and pressed his lips to my forehead in a kiss that felt like a promise. "Then stay, Emma. Stay and let me take care of you both. Let me show you what it means to be cherished instead of tolerated." The baby kicked again, and Alexei's hand moved to my belly without thinking, his palm spreading wide over the swell. She kicked directly into his hand, and his expression transformed. Wonder mixing with something fierce and protective. "She knows you," I whispered. "Good." His voice was rough, "because I'm going to be here for every moment she needs me. Doctor's appointments, midnight feedings, first steps, first words, all of it. Alexei, you don't have to. I want to." He lifted his eyes to mine, and what I saw there stole my breath. Not just attraction or duty, but something deeper. Something that looked dangerously like love. "I want to be there. For both of you. If you'll let me." I should have said no. Should have protected my heart, kept my distance, remembered that I barely knew this man. But sitting there in his arms, his hand on my belly, his eyes promising things I'd never thought I could have, I couldn't bring myself to refuse. "Okay," I breathed. "Yes, I want that too." He kissed me then, properly this time. His lips were soft against mine but insistent. claiming me with a thoroughness that made my toes curl. His hand cupped the back of my head, angling me exactly where he wanted me, and I melted into him, returning the kiss with equal fervor. It was promise and possession, tenderness and heat, everything I'd been missing, and everything I'd never known I wanted. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine. "You're mine now, Emma. Mine to protect, mine to care for. Say you understand." "I understand," I whispered, and felt the truth of it settle into my bones. The weeks that followed were the happiest of my life. Alexei was true to his word. He accompanied me to every doctor's appointment, his hand in mine as we watched our daughter on ultrasound screens. I caught him calling her our daughter, and didn't correct him. He was there more than David had ever been. He had a nursery prepared, decorated in soft creams and golds, with a crib that probably cost more than my first car. Mrs. Chen taught me Russian lullabies. Victor showed me photos of his own grandchildren and promised to spoil my daughter just as much. Dmitri, surprisingly, turned out to be an expert in baby-proofing and spent an afternoon making sure every corner of the house was safe. I learned about Alexei's business in pieces, enough to understand it wasn't entirely legal, that he operated in gray areas that sometimes turned dark. But I also saw how he cared for the people who worked for him, how he was fair even when he was ruthless, how he kept his word without fail, and I learned about the man himself. How he woke at dawn to swim laps in the indoor pool. How he read constantly, Russian literature mostly, but also business journals and history books. How he had a scar on his left shoulder from a knife fight when he was 19. How he was terrified of failing the people who depended on him. How he'd been alone for so long that having me in his space was both thrilling and unsettling. How he looked at me like I was the answer to a question he'd been asking his whole life. 3 weeks after the confrontation with David, my water broke at 2 a.m. Alexei was awake instantly, calm and efficient as he called Dr. Chen and helped me into the car. Victor drove us to the private hospital where a suite was already prepared, and Alexei stayed by my side through every contraction, every moment of pain. 14 hours later, our daughter was born. She came into the world screaming, pink and perfect, and absolutely furious at being evicted from her warm home. The nurse placed her in my arms, and I sobbed as I looked at her tiny face, her shock of dark hair, her perfect fingers that wrapped around mine with surprising strength. "She's beautiful," Alexei whispered, his voice thick with emotion. He sat beside me on the bed, one arm around my shoulders, staring at the baby with wonder. "Perfect. Just like her mother. Do you want to hold her?" I asked. His hands trembled slightly as he took her, cradling her against his chest with such tenderness that fresh tears spilled down my cheeks. She quieted immediately, her dark eyes, so like his, blinking up at him. And I watched Alexei Volkov, feared businessman and dangerous man, fall completely in love with a 7-pound baby girl. "Hello, little one," he murmured in Russian, then English. "I'm Alexei. I've been waiting to meet you." She made a small sound, her fist finding its way to her mouth. He laughed, the sound full of delight, and looked at me with eyes that held everything: love, gratitude, promise. "What should we name her?" I asked. We'd discussed names but never decided on one. Now, watching them together, a name came to me fully formed: Katya, after your aunt. His expression softened. "You want to name her after Katerina?" "She's part of this family now. We both are." I reached out and stroked Katya's cheek, soft as silk. "And she should have a name that reflects where she belongs." "Katya Volkov," he said, testing it. Then he looked at me, his gaze intense. "Not Thornton. Volkov. I want her to have my name. Alexei, I know we're not married. I know this is fast, unconventional, probably crazy, but I want to claim her as mine, Emma. Legally, officially, I want to adopt her, if you'll let me. I want to be her father in every way that matters." My heart felt too big for my chest. "What about David? He signed away his parental rights 2 days ago, in exchange for you not pursuing child support or involving him in any way." Alexei's expression was carefully neutral, but I caught the edge of satisfaction. I may have had my lawyers make the process very easy for him. I should have been upset that he'd handled this without telling me, but looking at him holding Katya, at the love written plainly on his face, I couldn't find it in myself to care. "Yes," I whispered. "Yes, you can adopt her. You can be her father." He kissed me then, carefully, mindful of the baby between us. "And you, Emma? Will you marry me?" I pulled back, staring at him. "What? Marry me? Not today, not until you're ready. But someday. Say you'll be my wife, that we can be a real family, that I can spend the rest of my life showing you what it means to be loved the way you deserve." It was too fast, too crazy, too much. It was also everything I'd ever wanted. "Yes," I said, laughing and crying at the same time. "Yes, I'll marry you." Katya chose that moment to start fussing, and we both laughed, the moment breaking into something warm and domestic. Alexei handed her back to me, and I began to nurse her, marveling at how natural it felt. "How right. I love you," Alexei said quietly, his hand covering mine where it cradled Katya's head. "I didn't think I could, didn't think I knew how, but you taught me. Both of you." "I love you too," I admitted. "It's terrifying and wonderful and completely insane. The best things usually are." 6 months later, on a perfect summer day, I married Alexei Volkov in the gardens of his mansion. Katya was there, held by Katerina, wearing a tiny white dress and looking angelic for approximately 5 minutes before she spit up on Victor's expensive suit. Dr. and Mrs. Chen served as witnesses. Dmitri gave a toast in Russian that made everyone laugh and made Alexei blush. And I stood beside the man who'd saved me on the worst night of my life and promised to love him for all the best nights to come. I never saw David again. I heard through mutual acquaintances that he'd married Melissa a year later, and they'd moved to another state. I felt nothing when I heard, no regret, no vindication, nothing. That chapter of my life was closed. This was my life now, this mansion with its gardens and security, and people who'd become family. This man who looked at me like I hung the moon and treated our daughter like she was made of spun glass and starlight. This beautiful, complicated, dangerous, perfect life. As I danced with my husband at our wedding, Katya sleeping peacefully in her bassinet nearby, I thought about that snowy Christmas Eve when I'd texted a wrong number in desperation, about how one moment of chance had changed everything. "What are you thinking about?" Alexei murmured, his hand warm on my waist, about how I texted the wrong number. "The right number," he corrected, pulling me closer. "The only number that mattered. The only number that mattered," I agreed. And as the music swelled and the sun set over our new life together, I finally understood what it meant to be home. Not a place, a person. And I'd found mine in the most unexpected way possible.